Coming in hot like 95 Fahrenheit. 3 Honest Lads are back. There are 3 honest lads on this podcast. In typical fashion, one is that way, one is this way, one is that way. I'm never going to stop with that joke because I just don't want to go figure out which way is up, down, left, right. Who really freaking cares? What does matter is that one of the brightest minds in football in the United States is with us today. It's not Mike Watts, who's over there, and I can officially say it's him. But Mike, say hi to everybody first.
I've been had. I thought you were giving me a compliment.
I mean, compliment is
you're coming in cold,
stretch.
0 degrees Kelvin.
No, that was a compliment. I didn't get to finish the sentence.
To our
you
guest.
Interrupted me.
Bring on the guest. Enough of this.
Well, let's get to it. Football-loving maniacs, as always, we're grateful for you joining us this week. Nate Miller. And Nate Miller, assistant coach. If you've been under a rock and you haven't paid attention, I say brightest young minds because he was encompassed almost every single level in the United States, starting at the collegiate level, moving his way up, was the head coach of course, Lansing United, then Lansing Ignite prior to his, what is the word we're going to use here? Venture with San Diego, Nate? Is it the entrapment of your amazing mind and how to push it to the West Coast and let Landon Dominant exploit it? What is the word that we use of your reasoning to come to San Diego and be the man, behind the man, with the plan, with his plan?
It felt like it was meant to be. A lot of things came crashing together at the same time, but it's just, what I would say is it's clear that it's a very important part of my journey. It is definitely a part of the journey that was meant to be, and it's been a perfect move for us. So great to be out here in San Diego for over a year now.
So Nate, we usually go back and forth here, and we're going to continue that. It makes it easier, mostly because Mike doesn't like to sit next to me. Little do you know that he's in there. See, I just knocked on his door. That's where I keep him in the off season. That door over there. This door, I'm in an apartment. We're in the middle of renovation. This door leads to life. Some people might consider it hell on earth. I don't. And that door leads to Michael Watts. So I'm basically in the exact place that I want to be, in between my 2 favorite places.
It's so dark in here.
It is so sorry. Hey, let me turn the lights off for you, Mike. So Nate, we like to go back and forth, and normally we get into it. We have a little banter. We're still going to do that. We like to open things up, but I actually want to start here and give people an idea on the personal side. I don't normally go this direction first. I want to know in global football. This is the selfish side of me on the interviewer. I want to know on the global stage, who do you support and why? And there's a reason I ask, and it'll come up later.
Okay, well, yeah, first I'll say I watch a ton of football all the time, much to my wife's chagrin, but I watch, football is just always on. So I'd say as years have gone on, I would say I've become less of a supporter of one team. I just watch a ton of football, as many leagues as I can, but I've grown up and always been a Liverpool supporter, I would say. And so like 20 years there was really difficult and hard to watch. And then it just so happened that a brand of football that I love, and maybe the coach that I admired the most in Klopp ended up going there. So it became this just fun that every single weekend I was watching a brand of football that I loved and I very much I can resonate with, and then I feel deep inside with the team that I've always watched growing up. So it's kind of fun to see that all happen.
Jose Mourinho is my spirit animal. Tell me otherwise.
It's a dark place. Looks very dark in your apartment too.
You mean in Devin's closet. And I'm never coming out. Nate, it's important for me to kind of take, okay, you're a Liverpool fan, you're a Klopp fan. Is that the style that most appeals to you from I want to coach that perspective, or I wish I had played that, or we played similarly to that when I played or when I was a head coach, or trying to chirp at Landon about what you think this could look like?
Well, I definitely think to start, I think football should be entertaining. I think it should be something that is, supporters can't wait to go to the stadium to watch you play. So I think from a standpoint of it has to be captivating, it has to be intense, it has to be something that's different. That appeals to me a lot. I do believe that there is more to the game than just just getting the result. Because I think that you also have responsibility to entertain, a responsibility to do something that's unique and rare. I think. With that being said, I think every coach finds their own way and exactly what type of, because I think you have to coach to your personality, and eventually teams end up mirroring the coach in some capacity. I think the best teams do. So I would say there's a lot, as all coaches do, and those who are ambitious do, take really like excellent truths or different ways of playing or training systems from different coaches. And of course, him, along with a lot of other coaches, have just been on, have just brought new ideas to the table that, you're always studying. I'm a lifelong learner. So even back when like someone like Klopp was at Mainz, I found what he was doing so interesting and new, because at that point, the concept of like counter pressing was brand new and no one even heard of it. And so now it's like rolls off the tongue of a lot of people. So I like finding just learning from coaches who are always doing something new and unique. And he at the time was one of those guys doing that.
Nate, let's stay on the coaching aspect of it. So we started you off on the global stage. You talked about Klopp and where that came from, how things can happen, how it can affect your squad. But personally, you started Taylor University. You're there for, I believe it was 5.5 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Just 3, yeah. And then at Spring Arbor for 6 years. Yeah.
I can't add. So
no, it's okay.
So you're there, and then you become an assistant. You go to Spring Harbor. Then you go to Lansing United, of course, then Lansing United, and then San Diego. On a personal level, outside of San Diego, and we'll get to that, who has affected you from a coaching standpoint in your immediate life, in your bubble, in your circle, to use a COVID term?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think, I would not say through my playing career that I had like a big shining light that impacted me a ton. I'd say I have a lot of different, I would say, quite a few different mentors in my life that influenced me in different parts of maybe like the career side or how to manage people. Someone that people would know on this podcast, say someone who's impacted me a lot in certain senses, for example, on building a roster or those strategies, would be Martin Rennie, who's been a really close friend and mentor of mine. So I've been fortunate to find people who understand the game or coaching of the different aspects of it, not just say the tactical side that I think people are interested in, but different parts of it like man management. And so he's someone that's influenced me a lot. Now in the past year, obviously, Landon's influenced me a lot in many ways. So I think that there's been a lot, but I think for me, I'm willing to learn. I learn a lot from outside of football as well, not just coaches, but certainly I'm just a lifelong student, so I'm always learning from different places and avenues. I read a lot, and I would just say the great thing about living in 2020 is that there's so much great shared information, and so like what used to be very difficult information to obtain is a lot easier now, and so it's a lot easier to go and study and learn the real details of what some of the top coaches in the world are doing.
What's the spark? What ignited, for lack of a better pun?
Jesus.
All right.
God.
The desire to coach at first the collegiate level and then through League Two and League One. And if there wasn't kind of one coach when you were playing that sort of was visionary, I suppose, in the way that you see the game, where did the desire come from to stick around? And a lot of people don't realize that oftentimes coaching can be the road less traveled.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have a different story. I would say the curiosity for me started when I was a player, I would say collegiately, where I was just like, this can't be right. Like, this can't be it. Like I definitely thought of the game like a coach, and just kind of like, I was always thinking about it more deeply, and always asking questions. But like at that time, those questions, I would say modern coaching is a lot different now. And, you wouldn't ask your coach those questions back then. You just did it type thing. So I went to a career in finance. I was in Chicago. I was pursuing that career and then very quickly realized, this isn't what I love to do. It was going well, but I decided to make a very non-lucrative move to coach. And I was always kind of pursuing my licenses as I was doing that. So I kind of always had this idea, this is what I wanted to do. And I didn't know where it'd take me. And it was a big risky move, and I'm fine taking risks in my life. I'm very, I'm okay taking big risks and betting on myself. And I know there's amazing people around me. So I had no idea where it would lead me, but fortunately I've been able to be around some good teams, lead some good teams, and just kind of move up, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. I was building a program at Spring Arbor for 6 years, and it was such a fulfilling experience, amazing experience. And I was fortunate at that point to be coaching in the PDL League Two, and at the same time. And so it was, what wasn't enough for me, college wasn't enough football for me, just not enough football throughout the year. And so I was fortunate to be able to really cut my teeth in League Two with like a lot of top players, guys that ended up doing some really good things, and just learning different aspects of managing people and coaching good players when I was very, very young. And so I was just very fortunate to then become such a young coach in the USL. But it's just crazy to look back. I became a head coach at 26, which is way too young. Like, why would anyone ever let someone be a head coach at 26? It's absolutely insane. So yeah, I've just been able to learn a lot through really good experiences, and I've learned a ton from my players. I would say that. I think something that I look back on, some of the best lessons I've learned and things I've learned about the game and about how to best create a great environment have come from my players.
Is there anything you learned from a career in finance? I mean, what were you doing in
Totally.
finance? Does any of it carry over at all?
Absolutely. I actually do not think I'd be the coach I am today if I didn't have that step. It was a short step. But I would say this: when I see a lot of guys go straight from playing to coaching, I think a lot of it, there's sometimes a lack of understanding of the professionalism of it. For me, I was in finance, I was dealing with high net worth clients. And so for me, going into coaching was that time there, it made it, this is my job. I was detail oriented. I came to work on a mission, rather than if you just go straight from playing, you just kind of want to still go out there and play. Maybe you're just a bit more casual, I would say. But I would say the professionalism and the process I brought to coaching, I learned a lot from finance, meaning just dealing with people with very high expectations. And I would just say, I became a professional very quickly. So I actually view those years as I don't talk about it much, but a very important and I would say foundational part of my process, even though it had nothing to do with football.
Nate, we kind of gave you a glimpse coming in of how we ended up getting the opportunity to interview you, and the different avenues that we've done with different clubs. I referenced the artists at New Mexico United, Front Row 205, one of the supporters groups out east. What took me with your story, with all due respect, was actually something that it was a piece of information that I received all the way back in early March of 2020. And when we're announcers, we have what's called a board. On that board, we build our players, we build relevant information. Mike is a bit more inclined statistically, but also has some cool little tidbits about players and stories. I've kind of done the same thing. Sometimes I have little notes, maybe where they go penalty-wise. There was always a quote that I had on my board that I got from Landon that I still till this day have never been able to use. I'm going to use it now. I will still use it on air, but I've never been able to use it. And it always took me in such a moving way. Interviewing Landon for the first time, going through roster compilation, what you guys could look like. Landon kind of stopped in his tracks and said to us, listen, I think I need to be very clear here that this project did not take shape, nor would I have any clue what I am doing if it wasn't for Nate Miller. That's a pretty massive statement coming from someone in U.S. soccer that might have one of the most storied careers. People could argue that any way you want, but when you hear a quote like that, what are your thoughts?
I think Landon is a very generous person and a very, very humble person. He's not anything like I thought he would be before I met him. I think he is someone who, well, first of all, it's very kind of him to say that. Maybe he's overdone it a bit, but I think he's, I would say I'm blown away always by just how he's always putting other people before himself. He probably doesn't give himself enough credit. I think he's a tremendous leader, and I've learned a lot from him. I think we've both impacted each other and changed each other in certain ways. I think that's clear. But at the same time, he's given me an opportunity here to work with someone of his stature, of his like I wouldn't say there's just one player that stands above the rest in our country's history, and that's Landon. And so the credibility he brings, the immediate credibility he brings to a group is immense. So I appreciate him saying that. But at the same time, he gave me an opportunity in a very complicated time in my career when the club folded. And so I'm very grateful to him. As you can imagine, a man like that has many options. And so I think that we immediately clicked when we were introduced to each other, and it was something that I was definitely willing to come here and work with a guy where I knew I'd be totally under the radar. I mean, you're working with Landon Donovan, like no one's going to know who else is at the club. This is just, when you think San Diego, you think of that man. And so, but it just speaks to, he's someone who elevates people around him. He's someone who, even though he's always in the limelight, does not need to be or want to be. And so he makes it very, very enjoyable and joyful to work for. I think that it's been fun. I think that we talk about football a lot. We've had a lot of time. There haven't been, since being here a year, we've only played 16 matches. And so we talk about football a lot, and it's been a great journey together so far. A very early one, a beginning one, to really create a game model that we believe in, and to try to pursue to do great things together. But he's a tremendous person. I'm very, very grateful to him.
Nate, quick follow-up before Mike jumps in. On the same path there, whether it was when you were initially hired and when you showed up, or when Landon, he said, he was very open. He said that he leaned on you a lot for those early training sessions to kind of get your bearings. Were you intimidated by it, by him or that situation?
No, but I think it's mostly a credit to him, because when I landed in San Diego and he came and picked me up, he's just a normal guy. And I think that he's a normal guy that doesn't expect you to treat him any differently. That doesn't really fit. I don't know why. It's just my personality. It doesn't really phase me. I mean, I definitely respect him for what he did, but to be clear, I came here to work with Landon, the coach, not Landon, the player. I came here to work with Landon, the coach, and the person, not Landon, the player. So, look, he doesn't act in a way that makes you ever, people around him who work with him every single day. To his credit, you forget he's Landon Donovan just because he doesn't act in that way. And so he doesn't, that's not how he lives and works. And so, no, I wasn't. I don't really know why I wasn't. Yeah.
So Landon picks you up at the airport and says, all right, we've got to field a team in X amount of time. And you've done this before, and you did it with great success at the League One level. The championship has its pitfalls. It also has a bigger, maybe talent pool, maybe at times more accessible, less accessible. You brought in some guys from League One that you had coached. Sort of walk me through, you talk about putting a game model together, but not only doing that, but putting a roster together with Landon and getting your bearing in the championship as opposed to League One from a budgetary perspective and a talent level perspective. What's that like for you guys in that time before you've even played a game as a franchise?
For sure. So yeah, there's the immediacy and the urgency of the immediate, and then there's always making sure that you're planning for the greater vision. And that, as an inaugural club, I can appreciate that is very difficult. When I arrived, it was very late, so I was not part of most of the roster build. So I helped bring some pieces once we took stock of what we had, of guys that had experience working in a certain way and would be able to execute a certain game model. So I think that it's definitely exciting this year to reshape the squad. We're bringing a lot of returners back because they were very good pieces, but reshape it with the exact pieces now that we are well defined. So I think that, when I got there, it was very much, we had played USL championship teams and Open Cup for me. We played Pittsburgh and Indy 11 a lot. So I've been around and I've just visited those clubs a lot. So I obviously have a very good understanding of the level, but it's so interesting being with him here because just the uniqueness of our club, there's just a lot of options that it's just a fire hose of options. So it's not like you're looking for players. You're really just trying to funnel in the exact people and guys. This is a very attractive place to be. And so there's a lot to do in a short period of time. And so for me, it was more, the roster was already pretty close. And so it was me more helping plan for the vision of the future and just making sure we're sticking to the process of being the best club we can be in 2 to 3 years. And this year we've had a lot of time in the offseason to reshape some of the squad. So naturally we brought in a couple guys that, I knew, would fit in well and we could trust from day one. So I think it's, I think the championship level, every single former player, big player to a T, you almost always hear them in one interview saying, the level is way better than I thought. So people are always surprised at just the quality of the players in the USL, and we can have a different podcast on why there isn't a better funnel to the first tier in our country, because it's a complex conversation. But we're definitely excited to be part of the season 2 build and picking the exact players we want for the project.
Nate, how much did Stone Brewing and the rumor that they have now developed a beer for Nate Miller have to you coming to San Diego?
That is the first I've ever heard of that rumor, but if that's the rumor, that would be amazing. We only buy Stone beer in our house. We are definitely loyal to whatever brand we have here. So there's only Stone Brewing. Maybe we can do like a high press IPA or something like that. That rolls off the tongue pretty nice. Maybe a double IPA, really, really packing the percentage there. But it's good.
I want to stick with where Mike was in terms of the roster build. One thing, like it or not, and I'm not shy about it, Watts will tell you the same thing. I tell it how I see it, and I tell it how I is. And one of the things, and I'm sure you guys as coaches experienced the same growth, was at the beginning of the year, and it's very difficult, right, because of COVID, but at the beginning of the year, you have an idea. Landon told us that you guys had the thought that between the first game and the second game that you were going to rotate at least 7 players, get everybody in so that, when push came to shove later in the season, you knew what you had in your back pocket. Guys had experience. So you play the first 2 games. You come back. How, from a coaching standpoint, in your mind, how did it go from the level that you guys came back at compared to where you finished? Because with all due respect, it was night and day. You guys might have been one of the best in the entire USL Championship at the end of the season. That obviously didn't go into playoffs, but when the restart played, it was kind of just like, okay, it's first year expansion. I guess we'll wait till next year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot happened obviously this season, so it's kind of hard to, because there's a lot of nuance. It's easy to paint things with a broad brush, but there's a lot of nuance that happened in all the situations. But I would just say this. From a starting point, we had our first 2 matches. We rotated heavily between. We got 4 points out of them. We were not obviously anywhere near where we wanted to be. We played very poorly in the home opener. But from the beginning, I told Landon, at that point, the world was normal. And I said, this is going to take at least 10 games for us to play. We need to be patient. It's going to take 10 games. We're not just playing low block 4-4-2 and counterattack. And this is not the project. That's not what we want. It's not saying it's wrong, but this is going to take 10 games. It turned out that obviously a lot of months passed by because there was no games. It took about 8 or 9 games. And then, because when you say the season, we played 16 matches, right? We played 16 matches. That's less half of a USL season. Our last 8 matches, we were flying. So we were in the learning phase, and we played it was Reno, OC, and Phoenix all in a row. And any year, that's tough. Those are good teams, right? Those are the best, top in the West for sure. And so we're coming into that going, okay, now we know exactly who we are. We had to make adjustments to the roster. A roster build was from 0 players is hard. We bring in guys like Rubio, Miguel, Guido, and they make a huge impact for us. Rubio was incredible for us. Guido, very unsung. And, I would say if we had 18 more games, guys, I don't know what the West looks like at the end, especially if we're playing in a normal season where we're playing everyone. We were excited that our group looked the way it was, because it's when we're looking at a real build of a real project, we're going to find out who our guys are in this group. We go to Phoenix twice. We play them 3 times. We have OC. Los Dos were very good. It was great. And then, we have all these good teams. We're going to figure out who we are. And we figured out who our guys were and the guts of the team. And so I think it was so positive. We got to really figure out who we were. And we talked about it internally, if we had 18 more games with that group, we'd have done some serious damage. I don't know who was the last team to go into Phoenix and put 3 goals and beat them was, I don't know. The the last team to beat them I know was Jack Blake and the Monarchs in that big Western Conference final that one year. So I think that was something that we were excited about, to test ourselves at the highest level. And we ran out of games, is how we saw it. Now, of course, we wanted to make the playoffs, but we ran out of games. But we felt like where we ended last year, we were on pace to be the team we wanted to play in a full USL season, for sure.
I want to talk about implementing a culture, and there is probably a fair number of people who are going to roll their eyes at the idea of creating culture in year one, that it takes more time, that it's overstated, but every coach always comes in with the same overarching initial commentary. And the steps over the course of the past 12 months around this team, for one, Kerry Taylor comes in. This becomes, if not the most inclusive, among the most in men's professional soccer in the country. Everything that goes on during the shutdown, this is the club that puts Black Lives Matter on their jersey. There's the Elijah Martin and the Colin Martin situations where the club, I think, did far more than most clubs would have done. And I think we've seen that in the past, that not many clubs have been willing to actually put their money where their mouth is, and San Diego did. So whether it's Andrew, the owner, who every time you see his name, it's local business owner, club owner, and philanthropist, or Landon Donovan being the face of the U.S. men's national team for such a long time and now owning this club, to you and the players, describe trying to build a culture around genuinely trying to do the right thing in the world around you, as much as it is trying to build something in your locker room.
It's a great question. I think that, first of all, when you talk about culture, and I honestly don't like talking about culture in interviews because it's such a cliche thing, and we're just going to talk about something vague that no one really knows what you're talking about. And there's just very few great cultures out there. I truly believe that. But what we have here is elite leadership, and there's no good culture without elite leadership. And so you can see the decisions that were made at the club were not easy decisions, and difficult decisions that were the right decisions. And that takes excellent leadership. So you mentioned Andrew, 100% for sure. Everyone at the club feels that. And then so we can take that cue from our owner. Warren Smith, who's been just a pillar of the USL before, and then Landon, of course. So the soul of the club definitely was searched very quickly, and we know who we are, and feel fortunate to be in a place where we will act on it, for sure. And because it doesn't matter what you believe, if you're not willing to act on those actions, then you need to search yourself. So I think that the culture of the club, as far as representing our city and doing the right thing, and always, I would say, doing it with honor, was very important, and it showed itself. And I think but we were also still creating our culture at the same time. How that seeps down to the culture of the squad, of the team, because there's definitely a club culture, but then you want the team culture to also represent that. And I just think that how you saw the players back their teammates in big moments this year, in very tangible ways, was extremely impressive. And I think that impacted a lot of our current team culture. I mean, it was, as you can imagine, in a COVID year, it was so difficult for the players. I think it was extremely difficult year to be a footballer. Like, people just turn on and watch the TV, but these guys were literally just sitting in their apartments doing nothing because they couldn't, because no one we had zero positive COVID tests. No one wanted to let the group down by testing positive. No one in the club. And so it was very difficult. Guys are from around the world, and it was challenging mentally. And then to have the consistency and then the clarity in the moment to make the right decisions as a team. And there's a lot of things that people didn't see, like the decisions the players made behind closed doors. It was extremely impressive. And it's difficult to define culture because you come into a lot of cliches and buzzwords. For me, it's just how you work, how you behave every single day, and then the experience that produces in each other. So I think if someone were to come and if you want to know what our culture is, it's just you'd have to come and watch it and understand it, and then also see the decisions and the hard moments that are made. And so very unusual year one. We had, the club had some very difficult decisions to make, and we went through a lot of hard things, and that's only benefited us. And it's made the team very, very close. It's made the team very, very close. And that's more my responsibility. My responsibility is to the players and to that locker room every single day. That's where my role lies. And I'm thankful that I'm part of a club where the decisions way above me are just always at the elite and the most just the right decisions, even in difficult moments, are made.
Nate, almost done, and we'll get you out of here. Let's talk about the players and let's talk about some of those decisions. I want to talk about the upcoming season. I don't want to single any player out because of what you guys have done in the offseason. Got to name a few names for our fans, for your guys' followers. And I just want to talk about the process. Corey Herzog up top, Jack Blake, the Wonder Kid, love that kid. Vanky Azil on the back line. I'm naming 3. There are many more than that, including players that you've been able to retain. You said how you wanted to bring those guys back. I want to know the recruitment process, either keeping players with you or bringing guys in. What is that process like, and when did it start?
Recruitment is ongoing. There's not certainly most years there's a recruitment window where everyone's paying attention. But when we're talking about our own players, recruitment is every single day because they either want to be there or they don't. So we didn't just exercise. I think we exercised 0 options. We signed new deals with all of those players. So it just shows that some of those were long-term. These guys want to be here. Charlie Adams, Colin Martin, Jack Metcalf. These guys want to be here. Grant Stoneman. These guys want to be here and build here. So I think that is something that's important. It was not hard to retain those guys. They wanted to be here, and we wanted to build around them. I think you're seeing a player in Colin Martin now flourish for the first time in his career and show exactly what he can do on the field. And he is a footballer first, and he is a tremendous one at that. The recruitment of the other players, we were looking for specific qualities as far as profiles on the field, specific to what we want to do. And then you go through a very rigorous process of making sure this is the right person, the right man. We don't want to be normal USL teams where there's so much turnover every year. That's frustrating. I don't think you build really good chemistry or a very viable identity with that. And building identity is very, very central to what we want to do. Thomas is maybe not known by all the fans, but that guy is a baller. And we felt, as far as building a different type of squad this year, a smaller one, due to COVID, a bit more flexible. He can play in a lot of different positions. But as far as in our build-up in a 3-back, he is just tremendously intelligent player. And maybe the only really player at that position we really wanted. And we didn't really have a number 2 target there. Jack is, for us, when you just look at, okay, who's the best midfielder on the board that we wanted to bring in to work with Charlie and Colin, it was Jack. It was always going to be Jack. And we got our guy. That guy is also a big player in big games. We wanted a player who knows what it's like to drive a team to a Western Conference title. That's the type of player we want. And these are all guys who are in their performing years. I think that's the key thing to mention. They're all 25, 26. We're not a club that brings in 18-year-olds maybe to sell on. We're a club that wants to win, but we don't want guys on the tail end of their career that survive on their name on the back of their shirt. Corey, there really isn't another player like Corey as far as a striker we felt that we're very, very familiar with that could press like we wanted our strikers to press. And so he is just a guy that he's a great personality. He can really press, has a ton of just volume of actions defensively. And then just his movement off the ball, his ability to be flexible and play with a lot of different types of attacking players. We've wanted him for a long time. We thought we'd had him the year before. It just didn't quite work out. So he's a guy that we've targeted. So Ebi Akan, people don't know him, but at San Antonio, I coached him in Lansing as well. But he's just a absolute freakish center back who's got tons of pace. And to play with a high line like we do, we need that. So what I'm saying is we recruited the guys that we knew, the men, but also the players that we are fitting exactly what we're looking to do. We didn't just go out and splash the cash, and we were very intelligent, I think, on how we did it. But the USL is just getting better. Look at Miami is just bringing in guys tons of players. Birmingham looks like Mark Cuban owns the club now, it seems like. I mean, it's just like everyone's up in the ante, but it's good. We want this level to go up, and we want to make sure we're at the top of the West. So.
It's funny you talk about splashing cash, because I think if you're an outsider and you're looking at 3 all-league players coming in at the same time, and the guys that you capped, I mean, like, there would be I think a solid belief that San Diego's probably at minimum upper half, if not upper echelon spending club. I mean, to what extent do you guys look for? You have experience in League One. You saw at least half the current player pool there by being there. There's an element of, and I know you don't want to dig into this for an entire podcast because we could fill it, about upward mobility for players in the current system, but to try and go find guys that maybe are lesser known, is that something that brings you personal joy, given that you've sort of been there and done that and can bring guys to another level? I know Martin Rennie's done it with good effect, and obviously you guys haven't been afraid to dip your toes in the League One water.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, a few questions there. One, I'm not, at liberty to talk about our budget, but I would just say we're going with a smaller roster. And I think that we're trying to do it in a more consistent, intelligent way. I mean, I don't think that we're doing, I think there's teams out there like San Antonio who are really pushing it. I think it's good for the league. Phoenix, obviously. So we're going to do it our way. We're going to try to be very, just wise with the resources we have, but we feel very confident. So I say, look, I think in the USL, there are so many, or just in this landscape, in this environment, there's a good amount of players that are not players that people know about who can help you all the time. You just have to be willing to look. And I think the key thing is they have to work for you. So I think that there's some players that could move up that wouldn't work for some coaches that would really work for other coaches. So you look at our team, for example, like Grant Stoneman went from League One and now he is a top performer in our team. So it's just, Lennon and I talk about this all the time. Right player, right coach, right club, right time is everything. It's everything. Because you see really good players, there are really good players that don't have clubs, and there are just okay players that are on clubs. So it's just a bit of an inefficient market, I would call it. I think coaches in League One should take pride in selling up and moving players up. For some reason, there's a bit of an inclination of those coaches want to, like, if Lansing had sticked around, we would have sold 3 or 4 because I was already getting offers at the end of the year. But I didn't do it because I know those guys would be free agents because I saw the writing on the wall. I wanted to give them the best opportunity possible. But guys like Nick Moon, who went to Indy, I mean, that guy is definitely an up-and-coming player. And I think we should, as much as possible, try to, when a player is ready to move up, let him go. And you see that actually now in MLS to Europe. That's happening all the time. But I think that there are players that can move up, and I think for some reason coaches want to hold on to them because of the immediate need to win, or thought that you have to have them. But you need to have confidence in your own process to find the next guy. We were so excited for Rubio to go on and play at Salt Lake, and we should be, and he should be. And that was the point of him coming to San Diego. That was the whole point, for him to kill it for us and for him to get back on track as a young player who'd gone a bit off the rails. And now it's on us to find the next one. And you have to have confidence that you can do that. And we're willing to look anywhere. Like our number 2 goalkeeper came from open tryout. So I think that you have to be willing to look. And I think that you have to be willing to give younger players and players coming from leagues below a chance, because the market is so inefficient. There are very good players in League One that are stuck on option year contracts, and it's just hard to get them out. So I hope that all coaches are more willing to push up, and I think that that's good for a soccer pyramid.
Coach, last one for me, and then we'll let you go. Obviously, of course, Mike can jump in. We're recording this on Tuesday, January 26th. It's probably going to be a week or so before it comes out. We have to go restyle Mike's hair and everything for the editing process. But I'm curious whether or not something is lined up or what you guys have in the works. Can you give us an inkling or an idea of something that may be coming, or what you are missing and that you're actively pushing on right now in terms of player acquisition?
Sure. Maybe, I don't know if I'll get in hot water for anything, but yeah, we're looking for some key additions. So I don't know when it'll be announced. That's not really my job, but I think, we'll announce, I think, a very important loan player, a very important lone goalkeeper for us. We will also announce another attacking piece that we've been making sure we have the right piece. And then we're going to be patient, though. I think what you'll see with us is we're going to announce some more returners. So we have 4 more guys that are returning that we have not announced yet. And I think something really exciting is, again, a smart way to build your roster for us in order to be smaller and be more efficient is 3 academy players, which will be the first ever in San Diego history, guys that are from this area that we've had our eye on for a long time, and they'll be part of our first team every single day. So just in different ways, they're very important. So the academy guys for the efficiency of our roster and just for the future and how we're trying to build from such a soccer rich area. I mean, the depth of football talent here is really incredible. And then a few more returning guys, glue guys that are very important to our culture and to our depth. And then a couple important guys. And then I think what you'll see us do is probably be patient again, because I think as a club, you have to be nimble. As a good USL club, you have to be nimble and ready to move at the right time, I guess, like we did with Rubio last year.
Yeah. Here's what people don't understand is Devin's going to stop recording. This podcast is going to end. All of you are going to go back to your life. And we're going to see if we can't keep Nate for an extra 4 minutes so that he can show us the pseudo draft board he's got 6 feet to his
right there on that wall.
So, tough shit for all you at home. This is... And we told Nate that we have an expert bleeper, and I sure fucking hope so, but we'll find out. Nate, I want to close with this because we talked before you came on about having a wife and kids and all that's going on and how offices can be a sanctuary at times, and I'm awestruck by all the scarves behind you, and I see Bum, I think, is on one of those scarves, my favorite town dog. But you pointed to your books. What are you reading right now? I'm just interested.
Oh man, I read a lot. I've read a lot this year. Right now I'm reading a really interesting book called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's like a book on psychology and like how our brain works. So yeah, I'm just reading. I'm always start a new one. So someone just sent me this good book called Intangibles that I might, it's like the science of team chemistry that I'll probably unlock pretty soon. But yeah, I'm always reading something. So I think it's so important, I think that if you, those of us who can read have no advantage of over those who don't read, right? So you have to, I think for me, it's foundational. I've learned so much. I mean, I would say it's most of my education would come from just, I would say, my personal reading.
Yeah, Nate Miller Book Club coming to 3 Honest Lads. Woo woo. Nate, this was awesome. I appreciate it.
Right, guys.
Close this thing out. Bring it to 95 degrees.
Here we go. All right,
guys.
Coach. Yeah. Beyond grateful. Correct me if I'm wrong. Twitter handle at Nate D Miller. Correct?
Yeah, you got it.
Look at that. Yeah. If I did one piece of research that I got right out of that. At Mike Watts on air. At Devin Kernine. At 3 Honest Lads. Remember, hit the donate button, and that will actually give you the ability to hear the next 4 minutes of conversation that is not being recorded, and you can find out exactly what's going on the draft board behind the camera.
What's wrong with you?
Donate button. Donate. Like now. Donate. Like now. 3 Honest Lads. Football loving maniacs. See ya.